to the Smart Semiotics webinar. I think we're going to have a very nice talk by Kristian Bankov. He is from the New Bulgarian University and also director of the Southeast European Center for Semiotic Studies. He is author of 5 books and several articles in different languages. Okay. His talk will be on attention mechanism in artificial intelligence systems and its relevance for textual pragmatics. Okay. He proposes to present it in 2 parts. In the first, he will recall classical views of how writing and textuality provide a new structure to the human world. And in the second part, he will explain the attention mechanism in deep learning algorithms. The way we are going to structure this seminar is Mr. Bankov will have about 40 minutes to present his work. If it takes a little bit longer, no problem. And then I will call each person. There are 5 panelists, and each person has from 5 to 10 minutes to make comments. And at the end, Professor Bankov will wrap up and will answer all the questions and make his last comments. So, with the word, Kristian Bankov.
Okay, thank you, Monica. Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar, to which I have been already panelist, and I appreciate very much. Now I have to say that I changed the structure. In the first part, I will speak most about the attention mechanism in AI systems, and in the second part, I will introduce the, let's say, semiotic support, the link, the bridge to semiotics as I know it, because nowadays semiotics is something too big to be known by anyone separately. So I will present this approach, because now obviously artificial intelligence is the big thing. Everybody is talking and doing it. It is making amazing semiotic performances. So it's on many points of view, it is a semiotic machine, something which changed the rules of the games, because now we have a non-human author of text, and we have a text on demand. We have an author on a request. So try to imagine this. You have Dostoevsky, then you read his novel and they say, I don't like this part, can you change it? And then he immediately rewrites it for you. So with the artificial intelligence, we have something similar. Okay, it's not Dostoevsky, obviously, but it's improving, and it is nevertheless generating products of creativity, of meaning. So let's see what is this attention mechanism in artificial intelligence system. I now assume that you are, let's say, know about some basic notions in artificial intelligence and about attention mechanism. That's why I will try to show you as much as I could understand, because here the more you go deeper into understanding the mechanisms of artificial intelligence, the more you meet technological jargon and necessity of understanding mathematics, which goes beyond my capacity. Nevertheless, from the very beginning, I started to be interested in artificial intelligence. The attention mechanism turned out to be the key point, the element in the whole complex architecture of artificial intelligence, which changed the rules of the game. It made it accessible to everyone. It made it, because artificial intelligence is there ever since, and I mean ever since, from the 50s, from the 60s, the myth of the artificial intelligence was somehow elaborated and practiced, and many people tried to do it for many decades already. But with the attention mechanism, which is a kind of technique, a software invention, creation of programmers, this attention mechanism allowed the it's a technique used in machine learning and artificial intelligence to improve the performance of models by focusing on relevant information. It allows models to selectively attend to different part of the input data, assigning varying degree of importance or weight to different elements, which would say it is the mechanism which helps the artificial intelligence system, the large language model, which is trained with our linguistic data, to understand what we mean and to generate answer which is relevant to our question. I mean, thanks to the attention mechanism, the artificial intelligence system became capable of communicating as if they are humans. Turning the first, let's say, great mind working on artificial, he was saying, okay, we will have a full extent of artificial intelligence when if you conversate with a machine and you don't make the difference. Now, this is already the case. This is the case. And this came exactly thanks to the attention mechanism, which fundamentally enhance the capabilities of neural networks, particularly in natural language processing and related fields, by enabling breakthrough in model performance, scalability, and accessibility. So those are all parts of the whole performance of the system of ChatGPT and other interfaces to serve us as consumers. Now, let me say, let's go a bit deeper in this. Improve performance and context understanding. Now, here is the semiotic point. How attention mechanism made possible the context, because this context understanding, actually, we will see, was also an issue between, let's say, textualists and those who believe that anyway the lexicological analysis can, to long extent, grasp the potential of every element in the text to create its meaning. So there was this debate. We will see in the second part, contrary to what was in my abstract. So context understanding, how exactly natural language processing, it was revolutionized. The attention mechanism revolutionized natural language processing. The attention mechanism allows models to process and understand long-range dependencies in text, making them adapt to tasks like translation, summarization, and question answering. Unlike earlier models, attention enables artificial intelligence to capture the relationship between words in a sentence regardless of their distance. Now, the big thing is that thanks to the attention mechanism, when we ask something, the model, let's say ChatGPT, it is not taking the words separately. It is not taking also our words, our query in a sequential mode, which was the case with the previous artificial intelligence, which were very difficult to work with. But it examines with very huge amount of computation. It starts to compare all the words which we use to ask it. And then it gets, actually, this is the miracle it makes, thanks to the statistical model. It gets those which are more relevant, which make sense, which in his or her, I don't know how to refer to artificial, maybe it's to its, let's say, trained content, there it takes resemblances and affinities between our words, so it grasps which are the important ones, and somehow semantically it can identify the weight the weight. This is probably the key word, the weight of each of our words. So that's why when it starts to answer, actually the answer really is guided, it's directed, it is conditioned by the most relevant words which we use to ask. And since we use this socially shared thing, which is the language, his answer, artificial intelligence, is not something which understands what we are saying. This should be clear from the very beginning. But thanks to the huge amount of training and the statistics of all possible uses of these words before us, using the language in the same way as other people use, actually he can, or it can, grasp the relevance, the context. You see the context, what we mean, what is not said, but it is there. So this is the attention mechanism. Transformer model, the introduction of transformer architecture, which is exactly the ChatGPT, BERT, and others. The attention mechanism made the transformer models possible. These models have set new benchmark in understanding and generating human-like text. Now, scalability is a very important thing because the attention mechanism allowed the computation to take part in a parallel way. To input tokens are the words we use to ask in a parallel, enabling much faster training compared to sequential models like the previous one. The scalability has allowed researchers to build increasingly large models with billions of parameters. Now, it's very technical, but it's important because the attention model discovered, in a way, made possible to be discovered the really immense number of relations between words, which with the previous model, with the previous algorithm, with the RNN were not possible. Somehow, the attention mechanism allowed training of this huge system, the large language models, which are what you will see, what Umberto Eco says, encyclopedia. So the whole culture in a form of encyclopedia is what is the trained model. And in this trained model, in this trained large language model, which is prepared to answer us, we have all the links between the words, all the links between the longer parts of words, the sentences, expressions, and a lot more, which is already there, grasped by the attention mechanism, made, we will see in these embeddings, which are each word in this encyclopedia, which is the large language model. Each word has like up to 12,800 parameters, and these parameters link to all other words which has been used previously, and somehow provide an huge amount of information for every single word, every single semema. And we will see also with visual and audio material. Now, versatility is another important thing, and the most interesting things which are happening now in artificial intelligence creativity and its integration to really artistic and creative practices. This is the scalability, because the same mechanism can be used also for generation of visual material, images, as we will see, and as we actually use. You tell to ChatGPT text to image, you tell what you want, and it generates an image of resemblance of what you imagined. And also this process, this let's say computational approach also uses the attention mechanism, because all the image elaboration is supported by semantic, let's say, affinities and weights which stay behind what we want to see and what the encyclopedia of the large language model has registered as existing visualization. So in sound, in vision, in any other modality, and it is multimodal. the content generation, the ability of models like GPT-4 to generate coherent, contextually relevant text is heavily reliant on the attention. It allows these models to synthesize vast amounts of data into meaningful and human-like responses. Okay. For the chatbots, multimodal capabilities also, because it can elaborate together vision and the attention mechanism helped to make artificial intelligence systems able to elaborate in a multimodal way, to work for us, to fulfill our requests also in a multimodal way, combining images and not just separately working both on images and text, but also combining them. And there is a societal and economic impact. Actually, what we see is due to the attention mechanism, according to the research I did. So that's why it's so important. It's a broad adoption. It made it applicable in this human-like understanding of our queries, made it exportable in every possible domain, even in medicine and in we'll see in the next slide in various personal assistance in every possible field and in every domain in the everyday life. You see, innovation across industries, including healthcare, education, and entertainment, making AI tools indispensable in many sectors. So we will start to get used of them. For instance, our students now will, die if we take ChatGPT from them, because it's already so useful and comfortable that it's very easy to get addicted in a way. And why? Because it is like a human person. It is understanding the context of what we are talking about. Now, here comes the hard part. Here comes the part where I, let's say, discovered my limitations, because it was clear that the big thing, the most interesting aspect of probably artificial intelligence from my point of view was the attention mechanism. And I'll show you which equivalent in the semiotic debates I found it directly applicable to. But how it works, actually, I am still trying to go deeper and deeper into this. Fortunately, I have some mathematical background. I did School of Electronics, so I've been also programming a bit as a young person, and my 20s, my 20s, and this helped me a bit. But now the things are so complicated that you will forgive me that I will not be able certainly to explain you exactly and the full picture of the attention mechanism. But let's see, I will help I'll do my best. So the first step is the word-to-vec technology, which was invented, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, which is in the context of the large language models. Vectors are used to represent words. Now, this is the big thing, how to represent words into numbers in order to apply the whole computational power with which now servers and companies are on this position to compare, to train models to understand language. Now, word2vec was the first step to make the computational elaboration of language possible, or to make it possible in the levels which it is used and practiced now. After with techniques like SIBO, continuous bag of words, and skipgram, it captures the semantic relationship between words based on their co-occurrence in a large corpus. Now, the word2vec transforms words into vectors, and these vectors in the particular vocabulary of artificial intelligence systems is called embeddings. So in the, let's say, so-called encyclopedia of the large language model, each word is represented with thousands of numbers which provide its similarity, affinity let's say, usability together with other words and the difference and separation from the rest. So it's not Susurian, it's like a rhizome, it's like a very complex network, and each embedding represents a semema, a signifying cultural unit, if we use Umberto Eco's terminology, and each embedding possesses thousands of parameters, so vectors make a kind of spatial, but you imagine a space with 12,000 dimensions, so it's a very complex vector, and this vector provide all the inherited uses of the language, everything which the practice of language as recorded by the mass of all written texts which serve for the training of the large language model, all these embeddings grasp the existent practices in language. This is more or less the purpose of embeddings. In input representations, now tokens are our words. We ask GPT, what is the meaning of semiotics? And then the first step is to transform our tokens into embeddings before being processed by the model. So after this, it will contextualize our question and independently what word order we use. Now, each of us probably will ask these same questions about what is relevant for semiotics or with different words, but it will grasp always our intention, the context. We are semioticians, we are curious to know what artificial intelligence will answer us about semiotics. So independently how we will ask it, I mean, small differences in the sentence order, it is exactly, it will understand anyway very well what we mean. With the previous model, which was recursive, it was taking words in one by one or in combination, only in pairs. It was a kind of cumbersome system requesting a lot more of computation and lower efficacy because it was losing the understanding of the weight, which were the most relevant words we ask and which were the less relevant. So through the transformer layers, initial embeddings are transformed into contextual embeddings. You see, we don't have only an encyclopedia with all the language registered with all the relations between the words. When we start to ask the artificial intelligence system a question, it elaborates our question and in a way upgrades every embedding because the words we use in our query, the tokens, they are already in the encyclopedia of the system. And in the encyclopedia of the system, it selects these words, weights them, which is more important, and then starts to create on them, to contextualize them, to start already to elaborate links which concern our concretely made question or request, because if we want a request, I asked ChatGPT to create short stories for me, and it was quite, I mean, the stories were not great, but still it was answering with creativity to questions. But all this is the contextualization because it understands your answer, and then it has a very huge database from which it extracts human-like linguistic production, which works. Sometimes doesn't get the point. This is clear. Nobody is perfect. Sometimes you have experienced this. I guess there is a hallucination. It grasps uses of the language which are not true, which are invented, and ChatGPT, it answers very often with certainty that it knows very well what it is saying, but actually it is not. It's hallucinating. Nevertheless, this is all gaps which might be recovered with better training and with more sophisticated algorithms. So in generative model like GPT, the final output is probability distribution over the vocabulary, understand over the encyclopedia, derived by projecting the contextual embeddings back into vocabulary space. So the final embeddings serve to choose the right word. Everything in artificial intelligence is about grasping the next word. You see, a huge number of computation, a huge amount of computation supports the generation of every next word. This is the big thing. It works word by word. So the extent of its answer is already encoded by the encoder as an end of sentence, beginning of end of sentence, and beginning of sentence, SOS, EOS letter. So, okay, the extent of its elaboration might be bigger or smaller, but the procedure is always the same. It compares words, it measures the weights among a huge number of words, but try to imagine that the record of these words with their already registered affinity between them is like a neural network. It is comparable with our brains, because imagine that every word has like 12,000 dimensions, and try to multiply all possible links between these words. Of course, the training of the model is a selection for this link. So not every link is connected with all other words in the same way. On the contrary, training this machine means that you already summarize the statistical constancy of every possible use which already took place. Now, one of the big problems for the future forecasts of artificial intelligence is that now more and more texts which are in circulation around are generated already by artificial intelligence. And there is kind of a probability that the training of these models with his own production will bring to a decay, to degeneration, to lose of meaning. So this is another aspect which now the data scientists are working on, how to prevent that this large language model become auto-recursive, that people more and more use it, that no more human-generated text dominates the production of content, and how this systems will go into kind of see the generation, meaningful, the generation of the meaning they create. Okay, you see, this is very self-attention is another part, also very extremely important. The self-attention is a mechanism which, while answering the query, the system takes in consideration every previous word. So this is already very like a context and context in Umberto Eco's sense, but not exactly. Anyway, it is the self-attention mechanism is an improvement and perfection of the, but you see, everything is about predicting the next word. So while predicting the next word, the self-attention mechanism means that the IE elaborates also the words which so far has been generated in the answer. It takes them in consideration as well in order to be more and more exact of what it is answering to us, just to create this impression of incredible exactness and context grasping, which we experience while using the ChatGPT and Similar. Now, let's come to our discipline, or try to see, for instance, where all these billions of dimensions and richness of relations in language come from. Because what is the case with artificial intelligence, that it became possible only when the, let's say, technology succeeded with this attention mechanism to reveal all the depth of the language, of the linguistic use, the depth of the so many dimensions of the associations between words which the existing linguistic practice has been recorded. But why language is so rich, and what made a language work on so many levels with so many associations between the words? Okay, let's take this one among many who explain the emancipation of writing. It is Paul Ricoeur who, in one of his essays, I take only Paul Ricoeur, but most of our, probably Derrida, have said even more about writing. But it was the writing which brought the emancipation of the text, and only the textuality introduced the depth of language. Let's consider this. If for some reason writing was not invented and language, writing was not in. If writing was invented, but still, if the writing has remained on a level of transcribing our oral speech, the language would have never developed to this multi-level, multi-layer dimension as we find it now. One of the considerations of Paul Ricoeur, why textuality created the depth of language and the world making of language is, for instance, the book divides the act of writing and the act of reading into two sides between which there is no communication. You see, the writing text, the registration of speech actually changes the role of language in communication and make it rich because it not only separates the act of production of the act of communication, but it is also a record. It says Ricoeur, entails a veritable upheaval in the relation between language and the world, as well as the relation between language and the various subjectivities concerned. Now, if language would have remained just a record of oral speech, and oral speech is very limited, it's easier because while we orally communicate, we refer to circumstantial circumstances which are common to the both speakers, so the use of language is much more simplified. When you separate the act of production of text and the act of perception of text, then you have to make the text more complex to be immune against the variability of the circumstances. So you start to write, and the writing became more universal, more contextual independent, more abstract, more profound, and extended. You see, but now here I could have elaborated more, but I realize that all of you are convinced that textuality expanded the potential of language to mean. It expanded the potential of cultural to accumulate world making and views and all the content through which our semiotic, let's say, activity is. There is semiotics because there are texts. If we were on a local with asking Saussure to forgive us, but actually the real science of science came after textuality occurred, after the invention of the text, as Professor Marone would say, because the textuality created the premises for such a depth and such a profoundness in language. Now let's have a look, and here I can continue a lot, but I assume we all agree on the importance of textuality. Now, and to conclude, all this, the premises for this training of the large language models gives because it is a written text, and this written text is something much different from the record of the oral speech. It is a pure textuality in action, creating our civilization in a textual way. That's why the training of this large language model could benefit from a very deep relations within language and complex and multi-layered. The semiotic debate on lexicological versus textual analysis. Now, this this debate was mostly when I was trained in semiotics, like a large language model. I was also trained in semiotics. I was in Bologna, and in Bologna, the big debate was between the interpretive semiotics of Umberto Eco and the structural generative semiotics of Gray Mass. And while I was trained, actually, one of the ways and Lecture in Fabulo was my first serious text on which I worked, and then I wrote my a master thesis on it. In the whole text, Eco somehow develops this, let's say, controversy, debate, argument against the lexicological analysis versus textual analysis. So Eco was claiming that, you see, this is the role of the reader. Lecture in Fabulo, which was published in 79 originally. In a frenzy of lexicological optimism, one could say that the virtual context of every verbal expression is already established by the lexicon, and that the reader has nothing to do but pick up there what must be correlated to the expressions. Everyone knows that things are not that simple. Even a comprehensive theory of amalgamation between sememes meets with the problem of contextual meaning. So the contextual meaning was the difficult things to explain. They were the textual, let's say, the textualists, the so-called textualists, who were denying any, let's say, usefulness of the lexicological analysis. They were saying what happens inside the text is has nothing to do with the single meaning of the its components, the lexemas, but it's completely new essence. So we need a new theory, theory of meaning making. I was asking yesterday Tiziana to tell me where Greimas was saying straight away, the lexicological analysis brings us nowhere, straight to the point. It's useless. Lexicological analysis, I mean, it's useful for many things, but not to grasp the meaning of a text. And many others, it's not only Greimas, were telling that it was a causa perduta to study the, whereas Eco, introducing his authorship is the model of the encyclopedia, he was saying, no, we can grasp what happens inside the text because every word, every lexem, he said, in frenzy of lexicological optimism, the virtual context of every verbal expression is already there because it is registered in the encyclopedia, and it is registered because of the statistical constancy of certain uses. You see, so it's something very similar to what really worked 50 years later, just to train large language models in order to make them generate text. And the way these models generate text actually is not starting from a basic fundamental level of signification, something like a semiotic square, but it is exactly grasping the context and exactly what was in the encyclopedia model. I do not believe, however, those are words of Umberto Eco. I do not believe, however, as many text theorists maintain, that there is an inaccurate gap between textual meaning and textual lexical meaning and textual meaning. I do not believe, since semantic compositional analysis proved to be unsuccessful in explaining complex processes of textual amalgamation, that it should be completely substituted by an anonymous set of textual rules providing the final interpretation of lexical meaning. Okay, so Eco does not agree. He thinks that in the encyclopedia. I believe, and to conclude this Eco's statement, I believe on the contrary that if a text can be generated and happen for the same semiotic reasons for which lexical meanings are graspable and for which a sentence can be both generated and interpreted. So I think this training of the large language model do exactly this process in order to make the system able to generate texts understanding our question, because according to Eco's theory, when we produce meaning reading text, we elaborate each lexem, so we narcotize everything which is not relevant at the moment, and we blow up properties which are relevant, which are contextually justified. So it is exactly what the attention mechanism is doing. The only problem is to insert into semiotic compositional spectrum also contextual and circumstantial selection, you see? And all this is already in the theory of language. So Eco himself in Lecture of Fable refers to theory of language. And let's see what is there in the theory of language. Eco trying to predict the large language model in neural networks 50 years ago. he is considering what is the format of the semantic space. Obviously, if we were sticking to the dictionary understanding of lecture, to the dictionary meaning, to the very rigid, hierarchized, and how to say, a flat system of semantic meanings, as all these prophets of dictionary were professing for, then it is not working. But introducing a new format of the semantic space into the format of encyclopedia, yes, it does. And you see now how Echo is trying to explain in a figurative speech what I think is today the case, finally, 50 years later, with these huge computational capacities that we have. We are looking for a semiotic model which justifies the conventional denotations and connotations attributed to a sign vehicle. And so we should think of magnetized marbles, which establish a system of attraction and repulsion so that some are drawn to one another and others are not. A similar magnetization would reduce the possibility of interrelation. So you see, Eco is trying in a figurative way, because he's a great writer, and in a metaphorical way, to try to explain how a mathematical model should. Now, a mathematical model is doing exactly this, let's say, wish figurative of cultural units, which are like marbles, which attract or repulse each other according to the conventional use. Still better, we can consider every cultural unit in the global semantic universe as emitting given wavelengths, which put in tune with limited, though possibly very large number of other units, except that we have to admit that wavelengths can change according to the new messages emitted, and then therefore the possibilities of attraction and repulsion change in time. You see, other element, other layer, not only repulsions and attractions, but also of wavelengths, which make affinity between one great number of cultural units to another. Exactly what the algorithms and this attention mechanism provides. And when we train large language model, actually it is trained with such kind of information, which in a way, in an informatic way, fulfills what Eco was prophesying 50 years ago, like that every cultural unit has a different wavelength which connected with a very big possible large number of other units. And thus, when we read text, actually the result, the textual amalgamation, actually it is the result that we elaborate the properties of all the elements which constitute it on the base of their statistical use as recorded in the common encyclopedia. So later, Eco also introduces the figure of the rhizome, which brings his thought even closer to the I-neutral networks. For the same elaboration on rhizome in 84, Eco in Semiotics and Philosophy of Language, enriches the, let's say, figurative explanation of this. This is how Dal-E illustrated Umberto Eco's description of his neural network, not informatic, but kind of made of marbles, which transmit wavelengths, etc., and have relations between them. So it's a nice conclusion, and I'm ready for the discussion, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your very interesting and insightful talk. And I am sure it poses many questions. So let's call in no specific order the panelists. Let's start with Tiziana Migliori from the University of Urbino, and she's also General Secretary of the International Association of Semiotic Studies.
Thank you. Very interesting, Kristian. And I agree with you that, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Thank you. I agree with you that AI systems work according to many interpretants that are activated by prompts in the immense encyclopedia of the net. And AI models have to contextualize the meaning of the prompt by selecting the right script, the right frame. So ecosemiotics is a very strong model to speak about and also to understand the work of AI systems. So ChatGPT, Midjourney, or DALI often produce also stereotypes
Of course.
that draw from the net, and I would like to wonder about this, about stereotypes, above all in visual output, and also I would like to wonder if you think that we can also talk about visual translations using the Jacobsonian sense of intersemiotic translation, because prompt gives the possibility to the machine to translate something that is written in something that is visual and written. So I think that Jacobsonian models and Ecos models work very well about are very strong and effective models to investigate better the AI system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's better for the 5 panelists to make their questions and you answer them all together at the end. Sorry to interrupt. Okay. So let's call Konstantinos Mikos from the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in Greece. He specializes in artificial intelligence and scientific imagery.
Thank you very much. Am I heard clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So, I would like some input from you on the attention mechanism regarding what? At first, I think that the attention mechanism sounds very logical from a software point of view, from a computational point of view. I mean that it would make sense from a software engineer to try to optimize the resources so that they are spent in a way, in a more efficient way. For example, paying more attention to what really matters, to what is more important, etc. So if this is only that, if that's only the case for the attention mechanism, that in a scenario where we could have access to some kind of infinite computational power, the attention mechanism would become redundant if it is only that. But listening to you, I'm thinking that even if we had so much power to access very large data sets, we would still need to make some decisions on what is important and what is not. And this is the process of attributing weights to different words or phrases within the text. And the reason I'm asking, which is more of the two? Is it just a computational technique, or it is something more, something with more semiotic value? Is because if it is only a matter of computational power, then at some point, if we reach a certain computational limit, we would know the attention mechanism, and maybe in turn this would lead to no hallucinations, because the software would not need to attribute weights, which at some point could be mistaken. It's like a human conversation where at some point we're misunderstood and we need to exchange more information. If, on the other hand, the attention mechanism is important, is inherently important for the way AI works, then we cannot get rid of the weights, and possible mistakes, which means there is no point in saying that at some point we will get rid of the hallucinations, but we can make it better, but maybe they're inherent to the way AI works. This is where I would like some input. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's hear Roman Izquierda from the Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana, Mexico. He specializes in neurosciences, in cognitive science, and has several other interests like audiovisual design and graphic and web design.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you, Kristian.
Nice
It's a
to
great
see you.
pleasure. Very interesting. I find it fascinating in the kind of work that I do here with my clients in Mexico in marketing. Everybody's moving to artificial intelligence. So nothing matters anymore, just what artificial intelligence does. So it's kind of scary because it's in marketing, there are a lot of fashion things, they get trapped by something and then they say, now we all got to do this and only this. And so it's quite fascinating. Well, one of the things that I would like to ask you is, what do you think about the relation between Eco's encyclopedia and deductive kind of thinking, deductive kind of processing, and abductive kind of processing? Because it seems to me that artificial intelligence models, by their intrinsic properties and the neural networks that support them, tend to be kind of deductive. They give us a sense of something new. But if you see how they work with the data they have online or whatever, they tend to process things deductively. It's a very fascinating deduction, of course, and it's very useful. But what about the abductive properties of the encyclopedia in Umberto Eco? And if I remember well, Umberto Eco's encyclopedia would include music, images, whatever comes with a semim or whatever, and it's open to everywhere. So as artificial intelligence works basically with logocentric structures and with only words, basically words, as far as I know, then what happened with the encyclopedia? I think Umberto Eco's encyclopedia is much more open, rich, abductive system than what artificial intelligence can offer us. But I would like to know what you think about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now let's hear Manish Purhal from Nepal and Toronto. He's a master in business administration and specialized in artificial intelligence in health and wellness space.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. So it was a wonderful presentation and I really enjoyed. And although I'm not from the space of like linguistic models and languages, but it was such a fascinating way that you presented, especially those visual models and how like somebody from 50 years ago could predict like something so complicated, like before the computation was even there, and it was just amazing. So my question would be, so all this while, so I come from I'm keenly interested in healthcare field, so I'm very interested in implication and uses of AI models and AI in healthcare, right? So it does have a direct impact on the consumer of any AI-based products. And my thing is like, so as these language and models like grow more complex, they also kind of form a black box. Like we still clearly do not understand like what's going on inside, like sort of it's input to output. We can like correlate with output, but how exactly does the model work? And we still are like there are so many models, we still are like exploring the sophistication, the complication of it. And as you presented the weights and the like some people assigning the models the weights and the model like being able to like self as if like it's assigning the importance to certain like aspects of the language and being able to like update and provide the outcome. So what do you think are the ethical implications of this thing? Because especially in the healthcare field, like it has such a direct impact on the person consuming it. And my personal experience with even like language models like ChatGPT, I've tried a few times, like for example, programming my clients' exercise routines and everything. So ChatGPT will try and give like uh, claim to be like this is the best way to go about a certain thing, but sometimes when I like correlate it with the client's situation, it's may not necessarily be the thing. It sometimes even generates some artificial citation to back that up. So it's more like like those claims like in absence of the knowledge that these language models can mislead you in some way, could mean like something as powerful as this could create like negative disruption in someone's life, right? And it's accessible to the general public, like very accessible actually, like anybody with computer can access these models, right? So especially the part where like you can assign importance to a certain part of things and you can actually like fine tune the model to create a certain thing. Do you think there should be a regulation or a law, something universal to govern or at least like keep these things on check, like at least an international body or something that will closely follow this, like how this is going to be used as a tool? What is your take on this, the ethical side of it?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Excellent question.
Now, last but not least, Paul Buissac. I think we don't need to introduce him, but he's a professor emeritus of Victoria College, University of Toronto, a pioneer in circus studies, and he runs a semiotic.
Thank you. I don't know where I am. Zbigniew, can you put me on? I have been abandoned. Well,
Well, you're fine. We can hear you.
That's what happened when you age, you know. No, here I am. Okay. Listen, there has been so many brilliant things to say that I'm not sure that I have anything relevant to add to the brilliant presentation and the very pertinent and enlightening remarks and questions. So as a semiotician, I cannot remain indifferent to the discourse on artificial intelligence because it permeates, like Roman mentioned, it permeates absolutely all the fields. The Grammacians now have special similar debates online about artificial intelligence and also the pragmatics. And I simply have a few questions, a few remarks for what they are worth. Now, let me start with when there is a new technology, there is always a moment of uncertainty that we try to come to grips with all the implications. This happens with a bicycle. You know, the bicycle has emerged in human cultures by chance, and it has been treated as a toy for a long time until it really transforms society. But it doesn't mean that we understand it, because there was 20 years ago, there was an article in Science, they have discovered the physical rules which account for the stability of the bicycle. But the next week, someone said, no, it works only if the bicycle goes on a regular circle and infinitely, but the physical theory does not work for the bicycle on a free way. And it's still an open debate about the bicycle. So we can expect a long debate for several generations about artificial intelligence, unless artificial intelligence does us in. But we don't know. Okay. Let me start by an anecdote. And I think it is very, very, very important because every day we deal with artificial intelligence. I receive, like many of you, a message from Oxford Scholar Press. It is a dubious organization. Some people say it's legitimate, some others say it's predatory press, etc. So every week or every month you receive, dear Professor so-and-so, we have noticed the excellence of your research and publication. We would like to invite you. And for a while, it was written by someone called Adam Rumens. So I said, let me check. So I checked Google, Adam Rumens. There was no Adam Rumens connected with Oxford scholar press. There is Adam Brumens, who was a plumber in Liverpool.
Okay.
And he was a very strong plumber, not the top. So it was quite, all.
Ricordiamo ai gentili passeggeri che il treno è vietato il far uso delle sigarette
Okay, so I decided to make the test, my version of the Turing test. I wrote to Adam, I said, "Dear Adam, do you hear me? Oh, yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. I say, "Dear Adam, if I may, since we have been communicating for some months, are you a robot or a real person? And if you're a real person, can you give me some evidence, like a Skype address or something like that?" The reply was, "Of course I am a real person." To which I replied, "Of course, if you are a robot, that's what you would say." No answer.
Yes.
I was expecting, no. So, Turing test has to be modified. It is not only that we must be fooled that we must be sure that this interactive artificial intelligence has a sense of humor, can understand sarcasm, can understand irony, can understand. And therefore, it is important, if they do that, it would mean that they would have access, they would share, not the code text, because when you talk of context, you talk of code text, text which is with that. The context is different. The context is the surrounding, the situation, the environment, not only cognitively with respect to material objects, situation, and so on, but also socially. How do artificial intelligence deal with pronominal systems? How can artificial intelligence assess if they should use the address system of familiarity, of intimacy, of superiority? So this is a very interesting test to do that. And therefore, I think that it is very important to frame this business of artificial intelligence in evolutionary framework. Because language emerged and developed as an oral phenomenon by people talking to each other about their environment and sometimes adding something on the environment like indexicality, like supplementary information, warning, etc., sharing feelings, sharing emotions, and also telling stories, which is very important because you have to, that's the information, Now, we know from the British anthropologist, I forgot his name, Duncan, said it works, oral language works with 150 people about, because language constantly change. There is constant variations, and these variations are selected by the group. Some die, some continues, etc. Now, let us go to writing, very recent, a technology, freezing. The language is frozen. Saussure used to talk about the tyranny of writing. The tyranny of writing. And so there is something that in AI, as I see it, because the sources is all the written text. Can AI evolve? Can AI generate variations that can be selected naturally by the people? Of course, variations can be integrated, but what will happen then? So I think that we have to rethink all these problems of artificial intelligence to frame them in evolutionary framework. I am trying to launch a new series with my publisher. It's not easy, on the oral foundation of language. Language is oral. It's not written. Written is completely, it's death. It's death, the death of communication. Ricoeur with all the worship of the text this is inspired by religion, by the sacred text, by the holy text. And so, of course, they want to save, the sacredness of the text, which I think is not. Echo encyclopedia is a delusion. It's a medieval classification. It's a system, what you call an encyclopedia is a bricolage. It's a patchwork. It's constantly upsetting, moving, putting upside down, and so on. And so we have to rethink a lot of things in terms of evolutionary thinking. That's what I have to say. And it's not very, it does not advance the problem, but we all have these interaction with GPT people. And sometimes they give us the impression they understand, but of course, meaning is in the brain of the beholder. It's not elsewhere. Okay, and so that's what. So thank you, Kristian, for having started this debate, and I hope we will continue it. I am launching next year a new platform called International Semiotic Commons, which will organize international conferences entirely online in order to save the planet and prevent this absolutely monstrous, massive displacement and moving in plane, that is still the norm for the association, scientific association. Okay, thank you. Now we listen to you, Kristian. Thank you again for your contribution. That is very edifying for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, of course, for inviting me. And actually, I would start answering by your remarks, because you touched these problems to which I cannot answer, joining with you that the things are not going in the good direction. I would agree. You say we need to preserve orality, to valorize orality through our semiotic know-how and to put it as a distinctive. Certainly, in my presentation, I tried to emphasize very much on this distinction between orality and written text without saying which is good and which is bad. I put more emphasis on the written text because the training of artificial intelligence is entirely based on the written text and the phenomena which derive from the writing and which somehow separated from the orality. Definitely, Ricoeur was kind of Catholic scholar, and scriptures were for him Protestant. Was he Protestant? No, he was Catholic. Is it possible? Protestant. Anyway, he was religious. He wrote so many books of religious hermeneutics. And Tiziana, I think your radio is working there.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just a second. I will. Dear Paul, this orality thing is very important because even before the artificial intelligence, the let's say decay of oral face-to-face communication started with all these chat platforms. So many scholars, but also our colleague Marcel Danesi wrote a book on emojis, which were, how to say, to substitute and make for certain generation easier to stay in one table and chat through their telephones rather than exchanging oral messages, circumstantial messages with the uncertainty of the presence. It's much easier to chat through a platform where you have ready-made expressions of your emotions, ready-made expressions of your, let's say, multimedia background. You don't use anymore your memory, but everything is on your phone. You don't use your identity because your identity has already been delegated to your profiles, your avatars, etc. So there is, I would agree with you that there is a strong, let's say, tendency to reduce the relevance, the practice of orality. Orality is losing. Okay, we have this after the pandemic, the rise of Zoom, of other platforms which allow us to chat among us. But since they emerged, you see how many augmented reality elements are present in order to make easier our oral conversation with illustrations, with emojis, with any kind of reactions, etc. So this is something ongoing, and I would only agree with you that as a semioticians, we probably need to valorize orality in any way, because it's better for society to have more real, authentic, not mediated communication. But even more important question is this one: training the artificial intelligence with written text. Actually, this next level Turing text starts to be important, starts to be the case, because, okay, it talks like a person on a basic level, logically, on a practical level, but certainly, at least to this point, artificial intelligence is not practicing irony. It's not capable of overcoding a sense of superiority or other subtle strategies of the orality, of the technique of social behavior. I mean, behavior in a politesse, the code of exchange of how people talk when they're together, and to express so many layers of subtle meanings with verbal communication. So indeed, probably we semioticians should invent the next level of Turing text based on more sophisticated expressions, because the first level of Turing text, it's already done. It passed it. So thank you, and I think I would be glad to join your Semiotic Commons initiative, where we will make available our semiotic knowledge to the community. Now, Tiziana, you are quite right that when these models talk, they use stereotypes, especially in visual translation, and it cannot be otherwise for the moment. Certainly, the statistical model is capable of this, replying according to our expectations, because as many observe, these platforms, in order to attract more users, actually they are programmed to serve us, to please us, to answer in a way that is more pleasant. It always starts, yes, you're right. Whatever nonsense you ask, it will say, yes, of course. This is very relevant, and then it will answer in one way or another. But the commonplace derives from the again, from the attention mechanism, because the attention mechanism it's something very subtle, and it is related. On one hand, it answers according to the commonplaces. On other hand, I read somewhere that while training, and especially fine-tuning, I will speak about the fine-tuning answering to Manish, while training these models, actually, the programmers left some level of randomness. You see, just to avoid the answers to be 100% stereotypical. So I think this is a perceived problem, that it might be extremely stuck to the commonplace, and to answer always and when you ask him to do something, to do it in the most trivial way. But now, with leaving certain level of randomness, this means to be able to choose between 5 or 6 options, and to choose randomly among them, rather than to choose with mathematical precision, the one which is slightly. So it goes a bit loose in order to escape from the, but definitely for the technology as it is now, for the attention mechanism as I understand it now, we will witness this commonplace behavior, and it's not very ironic, it's not very smart, but it's always perfectly informed. And when it is not enough informed, it invents things, so it hallucinates. But the programmed way of behavior of ChatGPT especially is always to give a very informed, encompassing answer. I don't know if you ask him about yourself, if he knows who are you, but to me, he answered with some inventions, with some hallucinations, which were very funny, but they were not made in ironic way. They were made kind of serious way. So, and actually also to Manish, I was about to answer, anticipating a bit the answer to him, but the disclaimer is always, then don't take my answers too seriously. Don't use my knowledge for serious matters, because I'm just a program trying to do my best, but absolutely no guarantee that what I tell you is truth and it is proved. So the authors of these models are quite aware of its limitations. Okay, so thank you for your questions, and I'm sure we can extend our debate in further occasions. Konstantinos, now you put Konstantinos, this is something very relevant, because probably in the eyes of the information scientists who are developing this platform, certainly preserving computational power or increasing the efficiency of the elaboration of the semantic relations between the weights, because one thing is to measure the weight to, I don't know, 20 million possible relations. Another thing is to measure the weight with 170 billion. They said that there were 170 billion connections in the first ChatGPT, the one trained in 2021, I think, the first publicly open, or at least when it made the biggest leap towards the large publish. But on the other hand, I insist, and this was more or less the let's say point of my presentation, that actually the semiotic relevance is improving, or for instance, you can make more and more complicated queries, and it will always get the thing. Yes, on one side, this means preserve computational power, make it more efficient. On the other hand, means with the more and more computational power available, you can expect more exactness of its answer. But this exactness to what is probably the case is always to give it more to the expectations, to the stereotype, to what is already known. It can improvise, by the way. I also experienced this. I saw it someone else doing it, but you ask ChatGPT to tell you a story, so it can invent story until 5 or 6 pages. So it made a kind of criminal story, which I put just the outline, and then it invented characters, it invented even dialogues, etc. Then I asked ChatGPT to, okay, please narrate me now this story in the style of Raymond Chandler, the famous Marvel detective author. And actually, it did it. It narrated the same story from the point of view of Philip Marlowe with the vocabulary of Philip Marlowe, and it became quite funny. I mean, it was not an irony encoded in the answer, but just narrating one and the same story from. So I think it's developing quite much. And also, I guess you have heard about this engineering, prompt engineering. Now, the system is very open because it depends also quite much on the way you ask it. So you can take more from it if you know how to ask it, and it is quite creative, let's say, field to take more and to take less stereotypical information, just using more mastery in asking it. And this is an open. Then there are so many applications now. I mean, professionals who know how to use it create applications through which you get this kind of information, which is more relevant. So the future is to learn also on our side how to use it if we want to be updated, and exactly not denying orality, not delegating everything to this system. Okay, I pass to Roman's question, which certainly touches another, let's say, unanswerable issue. It is deductive. Certainly, Eco's encyclopedic model is very much inspired by inference, where the inference is more deductive, inductive process and not abductive, the real creativity. I'm now in a project about comparing AI and human creativity, and I plan to work in the next 2 years on this research cluster with other scholars from our universities on trying to understand what is essentially different from the way these systems generate new content, because they are creative and they create content which is already used in many domains. And as you probably have heard, in certain professional guilds, there is already an organized resistance against the introduction of artificial intelligence substituting their work. The first ones were the screenwriters, the Hollywood screenwriters. They made a strike. They made a 6 months action against the producers who were employing artificial intelligence created stories in order to reduce the payment, in order to reduce the assignment to the real scenarists who were authors of the last draft. Now, there is creativity, but what is exactly the difference? It is something, I think abduction and creativity has a lot to do. Abduction, as Peirce described it, was the creativity in scientific work. I mean, the creativity, the scientific discovery to go beyond the known and to launch a conjecture which is novelty and which is unusual for everyone. So this is absolutely open question, and I will work on it. For the moment, it seems to me that visually the image generators powered by artificial intelligence are very advanced, and the language creativity, the linguistic creativity, when you ask it to create stories, to create poetry, it's very stereotypical, very limited, and not that advanced. But why in visual performance it is more advanced, it's an answer I cannot give because it's very complicated. Yeah, Tiziana, indeed. Okay, there is more input from visual. The database of visuality is growing every day because, and actually computation of one image and the computation which ChatGPT and DALL-E requires to generate an image, it's much more than the computation it needs to generate a text. So definitely as a semioticians, we witness this progress and try to elaborate on the creativity. So yes, let's see when artificial intelligence will try to make abductive thinking more, to be more really creative. This goes together with Paul's, let's say, next level Turing test to see. I think it's a long way to be run by artificial intelligence to reach these superior levels of human thinking, but since it imitates, it can imitate everything. So it's enough that everybody are doing something in order to start to perform. So Roman, I hope that this was also about the randomness thing, that they introduce more randomness now in the answers in order to make it more abductive. I mean, to raise the chance that what the artificial intelligence generates as a text, as a content, is more open and more, let's say, interesting and unpredictable. Manish, yeah, it's a black box thing, and the ethical issues are huge. As I already mentioned, I work on this project to see how artificial intelligence creativity substitutes, but it is an ethical issue, and there is a legislation. For instance, in the United States, they made a new supplement of the contract between the producers and the Guild of the Writers, in which now the role of artificial intelligence is very how to say, explicitly regulated, to what extent the writer will be paid and what kind of support can get from in decision making. There is a huge issue because if you implement, I don't know, in artificial intelligence policy making, it's frightening, the idea that some days some policies might be conceived, and let's say the decision should not be already to a person, someone with moral, let's say, imputability, but to the machine, because try to think what disaster will be for legislation to have decisions taken by it, then nobody else, no human subject of imputation would be responsible for this. In medical, certainly there is now in European Union new laws which start to put order in the use of artificial intelligence, but it is changing so fast that I'm quite skeptical that legislation can really can help. Okay, and it's an open issue. Don't use it for serious things. Very sad would be if people start to substitute the consultation with real professional medical qualified person with the advices from the chat GPT, that I guess would be again disastrous, and just can say that we need to. Now it's a black box because nobody knows what is going on inside, indeed, and this is the fine-tuning thing, because the first attempts even trained well the answers. They were quite unacceptable, but then the whole system was fine-tuned with working on the answer. So the ChatGPT was told what are the correct answers to certain questions, and since there was analogy with certain input of these corrected answers, it influenced all the other answers. So there are a few principles which regulate the whole production of ChatGPT exactly with ethical consideration. So the ethics has been added artificially to the artificial intelligence. It was added, it was not initially and genuinely ethical, but this was introduced with the fine-tuning, just constraining and limiting the production. So I guess in this medical environment, it can be very useful, but never left to autonomous action. Just always to serve someone, to help. But the main subject of decision making should be always some experts, someone who is qualified to do this. Okay, I hope to have answered, and I think the time is advancing. So thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Professor Kristian Bankov, for your brilliant and entertaining talk. I want to thank all the panelists for their input. I want to thank Zygmunt for his technical support, and a special thanks to Paul Buissac for making these webinars and putting so many interesting people together to discuss their ideas. Thank you. Until next time.
Thank you, Monica.